So the future of social media is hyper-personalisation. Now, what this actually means is that when you create content, you want people to feel like they're sitting across the table from you having a cup of coffee. You want it to be conversational and you want it to be meaningful and impactful to the person who's reading it. And again, what most businesses do is they craft their message. It's the same message. They put it out on all of the platforms that they're on, and it actually doesn't land with anybody.
This is the Business Owners Smashing It Online podcast for entrepreneurs and business owners looking for cool online tools, apps and strategies to make business easy online. My name is Nick Cree and I'm your host. Each episode features a guest expert demystifying the online universe, sharing inspirational ideas and providing tested real-world strategies to help you get the most of what's available online to grow your business today. Don't be a slave to your business, get your business working for you. Subscribe now and get some great content and ideas for you and your business today.
All right, well, we've come to the time in the evening where I'd love to introduce to you Kate VanderVoort. So, social mediology. Kate's been in the social media space for I was going to say a long time, but that's a bit rude, really. But she's been around for sort of like at least 10 years in this sort of space. I think I'm not telling lies when I'm saying that. She's worked in the corporate space as well, so she's helped large organisations with big budgets to spend on finding out how the social media stuff works. Because she's worked there, they paid for it. She's got all of that knowledge that she's able to bring out to people that are in small business so that you don't have to invest all of that money to work out how this thing actually works. So Kate is here tonight to generously share with us her knowledge and some of her information to help you with your social media marketing. And she is an expert in the organic space and helping to build your tribe. So let's put our hands together and welcome Kate VanderVoort.
Thank you very much, Nick. I will just share my screen. There we go. So thank you very much for that lovely welcome. And thank you, everybody, for your lovely comments as you did your introductions. I'm one of those lucky ones that got thrown into lockdown yesterday, and I'm at home with 2 children. I managed to bribe a friend because it is essential for me to be here. So she's an essential worker looking after my children so that I can actually be here with you this evening. And I was a bit cheeky today. I did the getting ready from the waist up because that's what you do in lockdown, right? You get ready from the waist up. Anyway, I want to share with you tonight. It's really interesting because, as Nick said, I've been running my company for 12 years now, and the principles that I used to teach 12 years ago are still in many ways just as important today. And it's been really interesting watching the digital marketing space because it really started out as relationship. And then we kind of moved into this space around ads and funnels and bigger is better and more and how many people can you get on your list. And all of that is really important, as are ad budgets and all those other things. But some of the fundamentals definitely got lost along the way. And so what I find with a lot of small businesses now is that they've taken all of the stuff that the digital marketing world are insisting we have to have, but they're implementing without a lot of the fundamentals. So I'm taking some of the fundamentals and giving them a futuristic view, because where social media is heading, and I think it was Brendan articulated some of that when he was doing his introduction, where social media is heading is really interesting, but in some ways we've come full circle. So tonight I'm going to talk about the future of social media for your business and what that might look like. We're going to talk about the power of hyper-personalized content. Big word, but I'm going to break that down for you. We're going to create, I'm going to talk about creating detailed customer avatars for you, which don't zone out. I know a lot of people have already done this, but I've got some nuances around that you really want to take on board. And I want to talk about exactly the kind of content that you want to be creating for your audience, because it's going to be different to everybody else on this webinar, and how important it is that that content really connects you to your customers and your ideal customers. So social media marketing requires a paradigm shift. Gone are the days where we can just broadcast our message louder and louder in the hope that someone can hear it. And I know that traditional marketing is more nuanced than that, but it used to be that we could put an ad up on TV, we could put an ad in the paper, we could do a letterbox drop in our local community, and we would somehow reach our audience. And Nick was talking about that today in the live that he did, you know, that if you're looking for one person out of 50, that's one thing, but when that becomes a stadium, it's completely different. I won't go into that because Nick already did that in a video today. But we really need to turn a lot of the traditional marketing principles on their head. And a lot of businesses are still using traditional marketing principles, thinking that they're going to, they're going to work on these newer platforms. So the future of social media is hyper-personalisation. Now, what this actually means is that when you create content, you want people to feel like they're sitting across the table from you having a cup of coffee. You want it to be conversational and you want it to be meaningful and impactful to the person who's reading it. And again, what most businesses do is they craft their message. It's the same message. They put it out on all of the platforms that they're on, and it actually doesn't land with anybody. Because you know what it's like, those posts that say, "Hi, everyone," they're just very catch-all kind of messages. So even just thinking about nuanced language so that you're speaking directly to an individual can make an enormous difference. But how you would talk to a 30-year-old female on social media is completely different than how you would talk to a 50-year-old male on social media. Where you would find them on social media is completely different. So unless you take the time to actually craft your content, craft your messaging to connect you to the people that matter to your business, you waste an enormous amount of time and sometimes thousands of dollars in ad budget because you're missing the mark completely. So I want to go into that in more detail tonight. So the first thing, and as I said, a lot of people have probably done this process. Please listen keenly to some of the nuances here because it will make all the difference about your customer avatar. But for those who haven't done this process, your customer avatar is it's a characterization or persona of your ideal customer. So these are the ones that if you had 5 or 100 every day of the week, you could retire in, I was going to say the Bahamas, but we kind of can't travel at the moment. You can retire in your backyard in Brisbane at the moment. But what we want to do is get really, really clear about who our ideal avatar is. So a lot of people, the first question they ask me is, but what if I've got more than one avatar? And it's a good question. And most of us have multiple avatars. So I have multiple avatars in my business. My consulting and done for you services are much more at the corporate level. The coaching is much more a mid-sized business where we embed ourselves into the business. And then the online courses and our membership are for small business. So I've got 3 very distinct avatars, but even within those avatars, I've got buckets, if you like, or nuanced audiences. And so you will definitely have more than one avatar, but what will really work for you is if you get clear on the main avatar. Generally, we have one that if we had 5 or 100 a day, we'd be super happy in our business, depending on the kind of business that you have. So don't let that stop you. So, you know, it could be, well, I'll go into that in more detail, but just a quick story. So I was going to say recently, it was pre-COVID. I was at an expo. It was a local business expo. And it was one of those ones where, you know, there's the huge expo hall that's got all of the different businesses. And I was speaking in the conference room. And I always like to go around and see who's who and who's around just so that I can tailor the content to the people who are present. And every single person, as I walked around that hall, jumped out at me and started their sales pitch. And not one of them actually stopped and asked me any questions. Now, I wasn't local. I was in a completely different country, let alone state. I already have solar panels on my roof. I happen to run a social media company. So social media services for the very enthusiastic guy that jumped out and started his sales pitch, not necessarily a fit for me. So rather than us jumping out and trying to show who we are and what we do and make a big song and dance about it, which is what we try and do every day on social media, we need to actually stop and understand who we're speaking to. So I'm going to go into that in more detail, but imagine if I had have walked out of there feeling like people had listened to me, that I actually got what I came for, that, you know, I did need my house painted or I did need faster internet, but I only stopped and had those conversations with people who took the time to understand my situation, because you don't want to waste your customers, or even worse, you don't want to connect with people who are never going to be your customers. So you don't want to waste other people's time, but you certainly don't want to waste your own either. So what I really encourage you to do, and I'm going to give you a link to this because I'm very excited. We haven't yet launched it. It's in beta mode, but we've created an avatar generator. So what this allows you to do, and we've just recorded the videos for this. So the version that's up at the moment doesn't have the videos that steps you through each of the steps. But my vision for everybody that's creating social media content is that they have a poster that goes up on the wall that when they're creating content, they're speaking directly to that person. So that when you create content, if your avatar is Sarah, who's 37 years old, she's married, she has 2 children, she is on 100 grand a year, then you have Sarah in your mind when you're actually creating that content. And a little tip around that, if you happen to have a database or an email list, have a look at, 1, divide your list by male and female if you've got that information, but 2, have a look at the most common name on your database. Unfortunately, since COVID, my most common name is no longer that popular, but Karen is the most popular name on our database. So I still have an avatar called Karen. I look at her a little differently now, but she's not your typical, she's not your COVID Karen, she's just Karen. So when you're creating your content, if you've got a visual image, and this will step you through their values, their motivations, their interests, their challenges, all of the things that we're about to talk about tonight. This will step you through it. And then we email you a PDF poster that you can put up on your wall so that you can start personalizing your content. So the next thing, once you understand who you're speaking to, is what's the problem or challenge or frustration that you help them to solve. And again, this is something lots of people talk about in digital marketing, and lots of you have probably thought about this. But what a lot of people do is they take the surface level problem. And generally there is another problem, a deeper problem sitting underneath, that if you can articulate that, and if you can solve those challenges in your content, then you start to get a really different result. Because ideally, you want somebody to feel like you're speaking directly to them, which I've already talked about, but you want them to feel like you empathize with them, that you're knowledgeable, that you know what is going on for them so much that they go, of course I want to do business with this person because they truly understand me. And there are some strategies that we teach. In fact, I think I've got a slide about it, so I'll come back to that in a moment. But there are some strategies that we teach around how you do that. So your customers, your clients, your referral sources, any key stakeholders in your business lead you to more people like them. So I'm a 40-ish, won't be able to say that for too much longer, 40-ish year old woman who lives in North Brisbane. I'm a single mum with 2 kids. I run my own business. I grew up in Sydney and spent most of my working life in Sydney prior to moving here. I'm very passionate about startups and entrepreneurship and innovation and change makers. So if I'm in any way, shape or form your ideal avatar, I am connected to hundreds of people just like me. If you have kids who are 5 and, if your avatar, has kids who are 5 and 7, I'm connected to hundreds of mothers through daycare and school and dance and gymnastics and all the other ridiculous number of things that we do for our children. Love them dearly. And they've stayed outside of the office so far, so I still love them. But if they are, if I'm in any way, shape or form your avatar, and you deliver content to me that is interesting, engaging, inspirational, educational, entertaining, I'm going to share that. And I'm going to share that with my network who are just like me. So your current best customers lead you to your next best customers. So connecting with them in a meaningful way on social media is how you get that organic reach. And ultimately, that's how you build community. Because when my friends also like your page or interact with your business, that helps the algorithm. It's all based on weight, relevancy, affinity, all those things. And so the more people that you get who are actually connected to each other as well, the better that is for your content if they start engaging with you. But one of the things actually, just back on that, that a lot of people do is they kind of go, I've got my email list and I've got my customers and I don't want to muddy the waters by, if they're already doing business with me, I don't want to get them on, they're not my target on social media. I want whole new audiences. Targeting them first and foremost and connecting with them and adding value and building relationship with them on social media is gold. And we'll talk a bit more about some of the other nuances of that as we go on. But social media opens the windows and the doors on your business, into your business, and it allows you to tell your story. So many small businesses set up their social media profiles. They set it up like a shop front. It looks beautiful. They invite people to the front door and they never let them in. And people are not there to connect with your door or the shingle or the number out the front or the beautiful paint color that you used on the front door. They're there to connect with the people inside the business. So you want to open the windows and the doors, really let people in. I'm in this small room that normally I have the door open. I'm just going to turn the aircon down. So, by letting them in and showing them behind the scenes, who are you? How do you do what you do? Where do you do it? I'm doing it in an office right now, but the door's closed, so it's not my usual working environment. Who do you do it with? Really show them, break down any complicated concepts. What inspires you? What made you start your business? What inspires you to get out of bed every day and serve your ideal customer? That's what people want to hear from you. So the more that you can open the doors and the windows and let people in, welcome people in, the more effective your social media will be and the more you'll build community around your business. Because people buy from those that they know, like, and trust. We've all heard this 100 times. But with what I've just said, if you truly understand your avatar, you know their pain points, their challenges, their problems. You serve them through your content on social media. They lead you to more people. All of that is developing that credibility, that trust. And people absolutely will choose you over others if you take the time to do that. And if you take the time to really know them, and I'm going to talk about some strategies on how to do that, then you fast track that process. So I'm going to give you some of those strategies so that you don't have to spend as long as I did figuring that out. So you want to get your brand out of the middle of the conversation. Now, I don't devalue branding. Branding is really important, and we've generally all spent a whole lot of time, money, effort in developing a brand. And I understand that your brand is what differentiates you from others in the marketplace. However, unbranded content travels far further than branded content does. And so you want to consider when you're creating your content where you're going to put your logo. You don't need to whack your logo on every piece of content that you're sharing. In fact, there's really good reasons not to for the majority of your content. You want it on your key marketing messages. You want it on things that potentially are your intellectual property. But a great example of this, I did some work with a tech company a few years ago, and they brought me in on a 3-month contract to set up a Facebook group to support their customer service team. They had a very traditional customer service model where a customer support, so this is when people had tech issues, problems with the devices, they would actually get them to ring up, stay on hold. Do you remember those days when we actually used to stay on hold for tech support? Still happens if you're trying to change flights at the moment. But they would literally stay on hold. They could never get their questions answered, even though people were sitting in the same room. It was a bit of a disaster. So we set up this Facebook group. We told all of their customers, people joined. In fact, people joined at a much greater rate than anyone thought was going to, including me. And the group went really well. And I stuck around for a couple of months. We launched the group, stuck around, bedded down all of the systems and processes to really help that happen. It's a lot of the work that I do is kind of the culture change that has to happen in companies and businesses to adopt new technology, because often things are done the way they're done because they've always been done that way. And sometimes these new platforms can really challenge that. But about 6 months later, I got a phone call from the head of customer service. And he said, Kate, it's Matt. I've just come out of a senior management meeting and none of the managers are very happy with you at the moment. And I was like, oh my goodness, not the kind of phone call you like to get, certainly not one I get often, thankfully. And I said, Matt, what's the problem? Things were going so well. And he said, well, the problem is our customers are answering each other's questions before our staff have an opportunity to answer the questions. So I paused for a moment and I thought, gee, as Nick's doing the thumbs up, what a great problem to have. And there was some more education to be had. But how amazing that their customers care enough about the product and the brand that they actually will help each other out. Now, don't get me wrong, timeliness is important. Accuracy of information is important. So the staff absolutely have a role to play, but imagine the time that gets freed up when people help each other. Now, that's when you really start to see community that happens on social media. And you'll start to see it on your profiles if you don't already. The kind of note where you see the kind of little flag that you see that that's starting to happen is when you post and people, when they're responding, actually start talking to each other, not just to you as the business. And that's when you really start to get more community, because you don't just want this to be you one-on-one with all of these different people. You want community. You want them connected to each other. I think it was Peter who was saying at the beginning, and I'm going to butcher your words a little bit, Peter, but people are searching for meaning and purpose and connection at the moment, but they want it in a meaningful way, not this kind of glib, just sharing stuff for the sake of sharing it. So that's how you start to build that community, is when you're truly serving them, but they also connect with each other. But that means not putting your brand on everything, because we all know people are not on social media to connect with brands. They're there to connect with people. So really bring the human to your social media. That is me jumping out of an aeroplane. Very attractive look. Now, you can't completely control your message on social media. We all know that. If you don't want it on the front page of the Courier Mail, don't say it on social media. In fact, one of the trends I'm seeing at the moment, which is fascinating to me, and it happened yesterday, is people posting in local Facebook groups and it ending up as a Courier Mail headline. And so there are journalists in all of those Facebook groups. So there was a pregnant woman in Arana Hills who wrote, I'm 9 months pregnant and a woman ran into me today with her trolley trying to get to flour. Can we all just remember that we're all people in this situation? And it was quoted word for word in the Courier Mail. And I'm sure they didn't contact her to get that. So we know that you can't completely control your message on social media. You can control what you say, when you say it, where you put it, but what people do with it after that, whether they take offense to it, whether they create a meme about it, whether they butcher it and cut it up, is completely beyond your control. But what I encourage you to do is give up some of that control for the benefit of greater reach. And what I find with a lot of small businesses, actually, I shouldn't say small businesses, some of the biggest corporates are terrible at this. They're so busy controlling what happens on social media or attempting to control that nothing happens. You know, I still, last year was the last time it happened, get businesses who approach me and say, I want you to work with us on our social media. We love what you do. You get results. We want to build that community, but we have to turn off comments on our page because we just don't have time to respond to them. This is my response. And I send them somewhere else because I'm not a good fit for those people. So Some of the other ways that this plays out is intellectual property. A lot of small businesses, coaches in particular, authors can be really funny about sharing too much on social media. They're worried that if they give everything away for free, that no one will buy from them. And the opposite is actually true. The more generous you are with what you know, you get the opportunity to demonstrate your knowledge, your credibility. You develop that know, like, and trust factor in a way that nothing else can. Ads and funnels are just ads and funnels. It's you authentically sharing who you are and being generous with who you are and what you know is what will work for you on social media. But sometimes it does require us to let go of some control and be willing to let things go outside of what we can control. You want to step outside of yourself as the business and really look at what your customers, your clients, your supporters, your connections, what do they really want from you? Now, I've told you to tell your story. And on the one hand, I want you to do that. But you also want to truly understand what they want from you. I used to work with my small business accountant when I was in Sydney. I did some work with them on their social media. And this was very cutting edge at the time, not so cutting edge now. But John, the director of the company, he developed this newsletter that went out once a month. And it was a video, excuse me. It was a video and it was a little talking head caricature of him, and it looked like him, and he recorded the audio and it synced, and really innovative for an accountant. I mean, kudos to him for, stepping outside of what he was comfortable with. But what he would share every month is the changes that the tax office were making. And I said to him, John, love your caricature. It's not always an easy word to say. Well done. Kudos for the innovation and the ingenuity. But I don't care what changes the tax office made this month. That's what I pay you for. What I care about. And he said, well, what on earth are we going to share? That's what we specialize in. I said, you've got a team of 30 people here who specialize in small business accounting. So the apps they use, how to streamline your payroll, how to recruit and retain good quality staff, how to benchmark salaries, all of those kind of pieces of information are useful to me as a business owner. So sometimes we're so busy sharing what we know that we miss kind of the layers of the onion. I often see that the core of what we're sharing is the core of what we know. I share social media, but my avatar is also interested in productivity, in innovation, in all sorts of other interesting things that if I have something to share or some experience on that adds value to my audience and keeps them connected closer to my business. So really think about what it is and go out and find, what is it that your avatar really want from you? What would make what you share, regardless of the platform, what would make that valuable to your audience? I think Nick has demonstrated with this group that he's nailed that with this group. And you guys show up. I know lots of people that run a free weekly thing and people don't necessarily always show up. So Nick has nailed what it is that business owners are looking for, and is bringing it in terms of content. That sounded a bit self-congratulatory, is bringing amazing people, other amazing people. So you get the point, but you really want to understand what it is that your audience want from you so that you can deliver on that. Because sometimes we think we know, but we actually haven't taken the time to stop and check that out. So a couple of ways to figure that out. I don't think I did a slide on this, but I normally talk about a 1 in 5 marketing to value ratio. So one piece of marketing content requires about 4 pieces of content, at least 4 pieces of content that add value, inspire, engage, entertain. That's what will keep the engagement going. We don't have time to go into all the algorithms, and I'm sure other speakers have done that as well. But the more relevant your content is to your audience, the more they engage, the more you show up and the more you get that organic reach. So a couple of ways to do that. Ask them, pick your 5 best customers. Ask them, what platforms are you on? Where does it make sense for me to share information? What would be most useful for you in terms of what I can share? You could be really surprised at some of the answers that you get, and pick people that it's okay to ask those questions. Sometimes people just go out and ask their customers and it's not really appropriate. So do that in an appropriate way. Hands down, the best way to understand what it is that your avatar wants. There are hundreds of thousands, mostly Facebook groups, works with LinkedIn groups. Twitter are launching communities. That will be exciting. But Google Plus used to have communities. No, Google Plus doesn't exist anymore. But there are groups of your ideal avatar that are out there. And often we're just hanging out in the wrong places. So if you can find those groups where your ideal customer is, and it doesn't have to be groups that are about the topic that your business is about. We were doing some work with a transport infrastructure company recently. Business, not a huge company, but they work with government, do a lot around transport infrastructure. They're consultants. And they found that their ideal avatar, 90% of them were avid mountain bike riders. And so they started hanging out in mountain bike riding communities. And what they started doing with their content was using some mountain bike riding analogies, because they knew that that was going to really resonate with their audience. This is digressing, but one of the other tips that I gave them that they've really effectively implemented is after every meeting, they go into the CBD and they go up into the big corporate towers. As soon as they've finished their big meetings, they come down, they sit in the cafe downstairs, they turn on rev.com or an audio recorder and they debrief their meeting. And they've got a series of questions that they just have a conversation about, and then they flick that recording off to their VA, who goes and writes a blog post about it. And so it's things like the highlights of what happened in their meeting, any wisdom that was shared by the stakeholders, etc. And they obviously don't disclose clients as they're doing that, but the content that they're sharing is really relevant to other people, like their current customers and clients. We do a process called a topic blowout in our courses and with our clients. So this is, you want to come up with what are the 8-10 topics that your avatar are searching for. So not how you describe your business, but what are they searching for? And again, what a lot of businesses do is they create content from the solution perspective. And when people are looking for your business, they're in the problem mode. So for some businesses, the language between problem and solution is actually really different. So you want to do the research and look at what it is that your audience are looking for or searching for when they're in that pain point, in that challenge or problem or frustration. And then with those 8 or 10 topics, if you create 10 headlines under each of them, and there are some great tools, I'm sure Nick's shared lots of headline tools and those sorts of things. There are some great tools that are out there around that. CoSchedule, I've got an excellent one, Nick, if you haven't shared that one. It's called Headline Analyzer, and it analyzes a headline and it talks about sentiment, talks about power words, talks about whether your headline's too long, too short, whether the keywords are in the right place. So that's a great tool that we often use. But then you will have then 100 topics. And so when you need to start creating content, you just go and pick those topics. Now the Facebook groups, I didn't finish on that. So sorry, I somehow distracted myself. Not uncommon at the moment. So Facebook groups, go and find the Facebook groups where your avatar hang out. And this strategy is not for you to go in and pitch yourself, not to sell your goods, your products, your services, not to peddle your wares. This strategy is solely about taking those keywords that I just talked about, popping them into the search bar in the group, and look at what questions, comments, challenges people are sharing in those groups. People share they spew all over the place. Women in particular, if your avatar's men, it can be a little bit different. Women are really, really good at asking for help and say, well, not all women, but a lot of women are really good at asking for help, and they go into these groups and they say, help, this is my challenge. This is the issue that I'm having. Please help me. And if you actually click down into the comments, people often add their own nuances. And what you want to do is take their actual language. So when there's a much more complicated process, I've done a lot of training with Ryan Levesque and the ASK method. So if you're interested in going into this in a much deeper way, his book called Ask, and then he's also recently released one called Choose, which is more about choosing your market before this step. But Ask is all about asking that question: what is the single biggest challenge, problem, or frustration that you have about X? And articulating that X is really important, but you want to get 200 responses to that so that you can analyze the language and actually use the language in your content. If you actually use the language, so where I was going with that was the language that was used repeatedly with my avatar for the online courses and the community that we run. The words that people were using was struggle and overwhelm. I would never have used those words in my marketing, ever. They're not words that I particularly resonate with, but my avatar do. They tend to be people over 40 who are struggling to get their head around social media and really understand how it works. And so struggle and overwhelm were words that consistently came up. I'd be crazy not to use those in my marketing. So Facebook groups is the simple way of doing what is otherwise a fairly complicated process. But, you know, you go into these groups, and for me, I've got a staff member who literally, one of the jobs every week that she does is she goes and searches through the top 10 Facebook groups that our avatar are active in, and she'll type in Facebook, Instagram, social media, strategy, paid ads, and she'll go through and take out all of the questions and the comments, and we look at that language, but we also use that to create our content, our videos, our posts. So it's a great strategy to just really fine tune and hone in on creating what matters to your avatar. And then there's another, are you familiar with Answer the Public, Nick? Another great tool where you can type in those keywords and it'll give you sentences and headlines and suggestions of content around those keywords. So that is how you can really create content that speaks to your avatar. Now, no worries. Bye, Brendan. Bye, Catherine. So in terms of some of the etiquette around posting, and I'm bringing this into the hyper-personalisation side of things. So post regularly, not too regularly. If anyone hasn't kind of figured that out, feel free to put it in the questions and we'll talk about it at the end. But the average shelf life for a piece of content is about 3 hours. And on Facebook and Instagram in particular, you don't want to post more than once in a 3-hour period, because what you're doing is you're cannibalizing your own organic reach. So don't post too often. Consistency is more important than frequency. You know, the reality is you can schedule on Facebook and Instagram. If you're not using Creator Studio, get onto Creator Studio. It's created by Facebook. Facebook is full of bugs at the moment. And generally the quickest way to get past all of the horrible bugs that are there is to use Creator Studio. But you can schedule. And so there's no need ever to post 3 things all at once. I still see people doing that. And I'm sure it's only because they don't know any better, but who just share, you know, a block of things all at once because they've found them and want to share them. Schedule that out. But you are much better off posting 5 times a week consistently than posting 10 times one week, once the next week, 3 times the next week. Facebook is looking for you to be consistent. All of the other platforms also have their own algorithms, and so this applies to all of them, but Facebook in particular. This is the part about hyper-personalisation that most people miss completely. Time of day matters. And I'm not just talking about the statistics that you can see in these platforms that tells you when your audience is online. Think about what they're doing. If your audience, your avatar is a single mum of 2 young kids, don't be sharing stuff on Facebook between 4 p.m. and 8 p.m. because I ain't sitting around on Facebook. I'm doing dinner, bath, bed, then more dinner generally, then more kisses and hugs and every other thing they want before they go to sleep. So putting yourself in my shoes, really understanding what I'm doing, means that you can post at the time of day that is going to best work for me, your audience. Even more than that, if you think about what they're doing at that time of day and you mention that in your content. So, you know, if you were to share something at school pickup time, I don't actually pick my kids up at school pickup time. I pick them up from after school care because who can finish work at 2:30 in the afternoon? But if you've got mums sitting around at 2:45 for school pickup, put that into your post, you know, sitting around waiting for school pickup. You know, what do you do during your time when that's happening? I'm making it up. But equally, if your avatar works 9 to 5, during work hours is probably not when you're going to catch them at their best in terms of buying mode. So you might share something at 8 o'clock at night when they're sitting down on the couch with a glass of wine watching Married at First Sight, but you wouldn't want to share something that's really heady or business focused because they're sitting down enjoying maths with a glass of wine. So really think about what your avatar is doing when you're scheduling your content, and even, you know, work that into your content so that it feels even more personal at that time. We all know this. It's not about numbers. It's about quality relationships, conversation, and engagement. Used to just be about engagement. Now all of the algorithms, they're not just looking at engagement, they're looking for conversation. And so I can't tell you how many ads I still see where there are so many comments and questions and they get left for days unanswered. And it's a waste of money. Like, that is hot leads sitting there waiting to have their questions answered. So conversation is key. And it also really gives the algorithms a flag that you're present and you're engaged. I'm not going to go on about that because we're running out of time. You want to create content that evokes an emotive response. You know what it's like. You're scrolling through any feed. The things that make you stop are the things that make you feel something. You feel happy, sad, inspired, outraged, you know, all those keyboard warriors, so many of them at the moment. So when you're creating your content, think about how the person on the other end is going to feel when they're reading that, and work that in. You know, buy my stuff just doesn't work on social media anymore. It used to, believe it or not. 12 years ago, you could pretty much say buy my stuff and people would. It was great. Much easier. You want to show, not shout. I'll give you an example about this because it articulates it better than I will. We do some work with a not-for-profit in New South Wales. They run a retreat centre. They run programs Monday to Friday, and on the weekends they hire out their beautiful centre for other organisations. So that might be corporates doing leadership retreats or meditation, yoga, kind of like-minded groups. And what they used to do was say, we're available for venue hire. It's $130 a night per person. We have a chef on site who cooks, you know, et cetera, and they literally just talked about the venue hire. Now what they do is on a Friday afternoon, they might do a post that says, welcome to the, I'm making this up, but welcome to the Westpac leadership team who are arriving this afternoon. Sue's in the kitchen cooking a hearty organic pumpkin soup. The trees are all turning as autumn's arrived. The fireplace is on because it's a little chilly at night and we're really looking forward to having you here for the weekend. And that just paints a different picture. You know, you can see yourself in that. You can go, well, hearty organic pumpkin soup by the fire. Yes, please. Not so much sitting in Brisbane right now, but yes, please. So you want to show what you do. Tell a story. Donald Miller and Story Brand is a fantastic book around how do you invite people into the story. But what a lot of us do as businesses is we make ourselves the hero in the journey. And Donald Miller talks about our client being the hero or our customer being the hero. And we're just there as a guide to walk them, you know, help them along their journey. So We want to tell a story that paints a picture that has room for our avatar to see themselves in. Sometimes if we're so busy saying who we are and what we're doing, it doesn't leave space for anyone to kind of step into that. So really show who you are, what you do, why you do it, where you do it, who you do it with. Now, social media conversations are happening on the public stage for the world to see. We know that, but this has another nuance to it. And that is, I still see so many small businesses, when someone asks a question, they implement traditional sales tactics and they try and take that conversation offline as quickly as possible. The number of times that I see people ask a question and the page says, particularly on Facebook, but the page or on LinkedIn, says, hey, send me a private message and I'll give you a call. They don't want to give you a call. If they want to talk to you on the phone, they would have picked up the phone and called you. What they want is an answer to their question on Facebook. And that does two things. One, not just Facebook, any of the platforms. One, it tells the algorithms that you are there and you're responsive and you respond. But two, it actually gives you the opportunity to influence other people that see that conversation. Because if you take that conversation offline and I say, Nick, sure, send me a private message, I'll give you a call and talk to you about your social media, then I miss the opportunity to influence anyone else who might have also be asking the same question or be interested in what it is that Nick's asked. So keep those conversations online. I'm not saying don't private message as well, but keep those conversations online, because so often we shut them down way too quickly and we miss the benefits of that. What others say about you is far more important than what you say about yourself. So having a review process in place, because 96% of people trust peer-to-peer recommendations over paid advertising. It's a pretty scary statistic. If you can get others talking about you instead of talking about yourself, that's the gold. And there are so many different ways of doing that. We definitely don't have time to go into it tonight. But we always suggest that you think about when is the peak of people's experience with your business, and make sure that you have a system or process in place that invites people to leave you a review at that time. Google My Business is much more important than it used to be. You know, reviews on Google, really important. Reviews on Facebook, a lot of people lost their reviews for a while there with the new transition to the new page experience. Hopefully they've come back for everybody. As far as I know, most of them have come back. But we do all sorts of things like create digital ambassador programs. And I'm not talking your paid influencers. I'm talking these are micro influencers. These are your customers who are highly active on social media. And for local businesses, Facebook groups, if you can get people talking about you in local Facebook groups, literally can make or break businesses. The guy that mows my lawns, he literally says, I do nothing, Kate, because you tag me every time somebody asks about a recommendation for lawn mowing. He said, I'm full because you tag me all the time. So finding those people and not rewarding them in terms of bribing them to do that, but finding a way that you can make it a win-win for them as well. We've had some really great success doing that with some businesses. So in closing, if you truly understand your customer avatar and you know what their problems, challenges, frustrations, or pain points are, you deliver content that addresses those challenges. You then surprise, delight, and entertain around that so that you keep people engaged. That is what leads people to action, to becoming a customer with you. So that hyper-personalized, people feeling like you're connecting with them as a human being is what will generate those leads. And it sounds like a lot of work. The reality is it is now. As Nick said, if you've got big ad budgets, I think he said that on the live video today, but if you've got big ad budgets, you can pay to see the people, to get in front of the people that you want. But this kind of marketing and this creating a community and creating relationship is going to give you a much deeper connection than a Facebook ad will. So for those who are dedicated to doing this, this literally can be the difference in your social media. And some people are creating great content. It's just not being seen by anyone because they've missed some of these pieces along the way. So I know we don't have a huge amount of time. I'm very happy to answer any questions. Deborah, sorry, what was that Facebook thing Kate said? Create a... Sorry, Deborah.
Studio, so I've dropped that into
Oh,
chat.
okay. So it's creators. Yes, good. Thank you, Nick. You've sorted that one for me. So yes, are there any other questions that people have?
Feel free to unmute yourself and ask away, or just drop it into chat.
While we're waiting for people to get brave, there's the bit.ly link, which is case sensitive for anyone that wants to go and generate their avatar. And if you've got any feedback about how that tool works, I'm certainly still open to it, given that we are currently finalising all of that. I must have filled people's brains with so much, or you all knew it all anyway.
No, we didn't. Thank you very much, Kate. Very, very helpful. Like you say, that the world of social media is getting more challenging, but I think people just overloaded with that much stuff thrown at them, isn't it? That it's probably more about helpful marketing, I suppose, in the concept of, isn't it? And relevant to the people, of course, too. Yeah.
And putting marketing after, like I often talk about it a bit like an emotional bank account. You know, you really need to earn the permission to ask. And I think most people just skip that step. And that user journey, you know, it used to be a hop, skip and a jump. Now it's a very long journey. And we always talk about, that link's not working. I'll double check that in a moment. We always talk about it's because it's case sensitive. It needs a capital S, capital M, capital A. There you go. Beautiful. We always talk about what are the micro commitments, what are the really small steps that people need to take that make it impossible for them to fail. And so you want to break down that whole journey and think about your content like breadcrumbs that are leading people on a journey, rather than here's the shop, here's the bread, there's the cash register. It just doesn't work that way on social media anymore. It's about telling that story, engaging people, and it does require more work. But when you look at those who nail it, you know, they get immense value from these platforms without paying for ads.
Yeah.
Thanks, Gail.
Thank you.
Hi, Kate. Thank you. That was really comprehensive. I've got multiple avatars, so I've got to think really carefully how I can create content that's going to capture them. The other thing is that I've heard that for people to actually engage with your business, sometimes they need to see your message like 7 to 11 times before it to really sink in, and they want to engage with you and proceed to end up becoming a customer. So for me, that's still being very careful with how to plan the content. So you're trying to get similar messages across without saying exactly the same thing 7 to 11 times.
And that's the thing, like I see content as a bit of a patchwork quilt. And, you know, again, like the coaching clients that I have, they say, oh, we've got one person who's responsible for social media, you go work with them. It's like, okay. And if you actually looked at it from a whole of business perspective and tell the story through lots of different lenses and engage, you know, for people who are in their business and it's just you, there might be referrers and customers and other people that contribute to that content as well. User-generated content is really important so that you're encouraging your communities to generate that content. What kind of business have you got, Annie?
I'm a bit unusual. I'm an animal communicator and an animal medium. Oh. So I have conversations with animals who are living and in spirit.
Yeah, that's perfect.
I need to find customers who are open to having a conversation, or me having a conversation with their animals. So not everyone is open to that. So I've spent a lot of time trying to get more exposure on podcasts and international summits and things, so that people actually know that communication and mediumship are a genuine service, and so that people know it can help with their problem.
And, you know, when you find those raving fans, when you help people for whom you create that transformation and it changes things for them or gives them peace and comfort where they didn't have that, they're the people that you really want to find a way to tell their story through their eyes. I'll give you guys a really big gold nugget that I've only shared with my closed membership so far. There is an amazing app. Sorry, Nick, I think I've shared more than 5 today. There is an amazing app, which is relatively new from Typeform, called Video Ask. Have you come across that, Nick?
Yeah, that is awesome.
We are creating some amazing campaigns with clients. So Video Ask, you can create a video message. So you literally can just hold up your phone and create a message. And this is something, Annie, that you can then send to people who you've worked with. And you'd want it to be a really heartfelt, you know, none of what I'm talking about is about manipulation or about gaming the system or conning anything. I hope you got by the end of that everything is about genuine, authentic connection with people. But in this video, you can say to them, and you would need to find your own words, but something along the lines of, I really enjoyed spending time with you today. I hope that you found some peace and comfort from our conversation. I find that it can really help if you record your own reflections about our session today. I would love you to turn your phone on yourself and press the record button. And it literally, this app makes that super easy so that they just turn the phone around. And you could say, Annie, just tell me in a couple of sentences or for a couple of minutes, what did today mean for you? I would love to hear that from you. And you would never, ever use that without permission, ever. But you could, in some cases, either go back to them and say, hey, I loved what you said. How would you feel about me sharing that? I'll cut out your name, or I'll change, you know, if you need to change that. Or you set it up in the video and say, people are often a bit dubious about using my services, but when they hear from people like you who've really experienced it, it can make all the difference. So if you're willing, you know, I'd love to hear from you. And if you're willing, you know, to let me share that, then that would be really useful too. And then, you know, some of the campaigns we've done, particularly if you gamify it or run a competition, and I'm not saying this is appropriate for you, Annie, but they've received hundreds of video responses from their customers. And that is, you know, you can't pay for that kind of marketing. That's hundreds of videos that you can then use in your socials and on your websites. So that might be useful as well.
Thank you for that.
No worries.
Awesome.
I'm aware that we're at 7:30.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's been incredible, actually, Kate. There's some real nuggets of information in there. A couple of things. One is that it's confirmed that I'm doing some of the right things, so that's a relief.
Of course you are.
And the other thing too is that I get a lot of questions from people or more comments where they say, well, you know, social media is just not working anymore. In fact, I had a couple today. Social media is just not working anymore. And my response had been, well, that's because you've got to put some more work into it because the game's now changed. And so you've really just confirmed that that's exactly what's been happening.
It's funny because it's what I've been doing and teaching for 12 years, but yes, it's more relevant now than it ever has been.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, do you want to flick off the screen share and we'll move to, we've actually got a prize draw today as well too. So first of all, let's put our hands together and give a big thank you to Kate. It was a awesome evening tonight. And we do have a door prize as well. So do you want to tell us about that?
Sure. So I've put up a door prize tonight of our social media boot camp, which is a 4-week course that covers what we've been doing today, but in a lot more detail. That's normally $4.97. And I'm giving the same person a year in our social media success circle. And our social media success circle, we have a content sprint every month, which is a 90-minute working webinar where we map out your whole month's worth of content. We do a Facebook and Instagram update every month and a hot seat coaching. And we do a success session where I bring in an expert around a particular topic, or we do accountability check-ins and see how people are going. We do annual strategy, quarterly action plans, all of that. So it's really about supporting people day to day in their business with their social media. So that whole package is, I don't know, it's $2,500 or something. So I'd love to gift that to someone tonight.
Awesome. I want to win that one. Who wants that one? Put up your hand if that's you. That's perfect. All right. So we have a special way of drawing this as we do. We have that wheel of names. All of your names are in there, and we do have some conditions for winning this as well. And well, only one. You just have to be here. So if you left the room and you win, well, we pass on to the next person. All right. Well, let's go and spin the wheel. And a virtual drum roll, please. And the winner is
Catherine left.
Catherine has left the room. Unfortunately, she had to duck away a little bit earlier. I'll let her know, and then she'll stay next time. All right, let's redraw it.
This is a very cool way of drawing a lucky door prize.
And we have David Fisher. Are you here? Yes. David, look at that smile and the thumbs up there. Awesome. That is fantastic. That's certainly a very good prize for you, David, particularly because you've got your video business and you're sort of a new business in this area as well too. So
I'm very excited. Very excited. Yeah.
Excellent.
Well, I'm excited about that too, David, because I've got some interesting. I'm needing a couple of other video people in some of what we're doing. So
well done. That's excellent. and we only live down the road. But I'm in Brisbane too, just down in Logan, just below Bentley. So we're all locked up at the moment, aren't we?
That's right. Excellent. Mate. All right, I'm just going to start coughing now since my microphone's come on. But Dave, if you drop your details into Kate in chat, you can find her there and just share your details there, and you can organise amongst yourselves how to organise that. Kate, to anyone wants to get in touch with you, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Facebook, Social Mediology, or connect on LinkedIn, otherwise socialmediology.com.au, although the Muppet that messed up my website means we've gone back to the old version and we're back at square one.
Right.
I'm going to go buy that fabulous tool that's going to write my website for me.
There you go. It'll do it in a couple of days for you.
Beautiful.
Excellent. All right. Well, thanks very much, Kate, for everything tonight and sharing tonight. Thanks, everyone, for
Thanks for having me, Nick.
Just a couple of announcements. We do have office hours tomorrow. So at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning, Australian Eastern Standard Time, you're welcome to join that. It's a no agenda, no speaker. Come and hang out, have a cup of coffee, glass of wine, whatever, at 10 o'clock in the morning. Ready to chat about online business. So if you've got a question or you've got, you want to talk about something, out of tonight, it's a great place to share with other like-minded people too. And then obviously next week we have the session again, and in fact will be me next time. It was supposed to be me this time, but my voice went, so that's why Kate is here. So thank you for stepping in, Kate. And if you want to see this again, it will be up on YouTube, on the YouTube channel. So just go and search Smashco YouTube channel. Actually, it's in chat now as well. Go and subscribe to the channel and you'll get a notification when that goes up. It'll be up sometime by the end of tomorrow, depending on how we go with our editing there. And go and subscribe to that as well, because we're trying to get to our vanity URL. We need 100 subscribers. I think we're sitting on 63 at the moment. So everyone counts. All right. Well, look, thanks again, everyone, for coming tonight. Thanks, Kate, for sharing with us, and I look forward to either seeing you tomorrow or seeing you again next week. Go and have a great week.
Thank you for tuning in and listening to the Business Owners Smashing It Online podcast. You can also find me on social media and online. Just search for Business Owners Smashing It Online and Nick Cree, spelled Nickcree, all one word. If you like this and want to hear more, subscribe now. Until next time, don't be a slave to your business. Get your business working for you.